It's been nearly a week since Charlie Kirk was brutally murdered in Utah. And in the days that have followed, there's been a lot to process. There was the initial shock and the horror as the rumors and videos began to circulate of this tragic event. There was the brief hope that he'd been stabilized and might just pull through. And then the stomach churning grief when it was announced that he had indeed died. And it has been a real grief, which is strange to say since so many of us have never met him, but it's just a testament to him as a man, his work and his character, the impact that he made on the world and on all of our lives in such a short period of time, dying as he did, just age 31, such a short life, but such an impactful life. Let me nail my colors to the mast here and say that I think that Charlie Kirk was a brilliant man. I admired his dedication greatly. I marveled at his ability to retain and memorize information, statistics, dates, names, and then the dexterity and lightness of thought to be able to bring those to mind when he was debating at just the right moment. I admired how he would never back down from the truth. He was steadfast with what he believed, and yet he would speak it with grace as well. Even when people would line up to scream and rant and shout personal abuse at him, he never wavered in responding with the absolute truth. Yet he didn't return fire with fire. He didn't return hatred with hatred. He responded graciously, often with a sense of humor, self-deprecating humor even, and a smile. He constantly pointed people towards Jesus. He was strong in his faith, his personal life reflected what he believed well, and he was a champion for those of us who believe in the truth of Jesus Christ. In that sense, he was someone who we could depend on to represent us, to be our voice to the world in the public square. And more importantly, someone we could depend upon to reflect Jesus well to the public square. Almost immediately afterwards, we also had to process the response from the far left. And that too has been shocking. That's been a lot to process, to see people cackling and dancing and celebrating as a man was brutally murdered in front of his family simply because they disagreed with his opinions. That was a real eye-opener to see that so openly and so brazenly, people laughing at his death. And it reveals the unhinged evil that has found a home in the far left. And I think we need to acknowledge that. On the other hand, I was also so inspired by the Christian response to all of this. It's been well noted that after George Floyd died, a career criminal and drug addict, the left rampaged through city streets, burning and looting as they went, causing mayhem and destruction. Yet in the aftermath of Charlie Kirk's death, there was instead dignified prayer and worship and mourning. It couldn't have looked more different. And again, that's a testament to Charlie Kirk's life and his message. The most inspiring thing for me, however, has been that for the past week, every time I've been on social media, I've seen scores and scores of people announcing that this is the moment that has inspired them to pick up a Bible or go to church, perhaps even for the first time. Even lifelong atheists are announcing that this is the moment that's convinced them they need Jesus in their lives. They've seen the face of evil. They've seen where progressivism and atheism leads. And they're now finally ready to realize their need of Jesus. This, I hope, is going to be Charlie Kirk's real legacy in the years ahead. That there does appear to be this genuine, real spiritual awakening as people turn back to Christ in their droves, picking up the Bible and going back to church. It's just been so amazing and beautiful to witness this. I've never seen Jesus being so openly spoken about and saturating social media like I've seen in this past week, which is interesting for me particularly, because I've just been talking in recent weeks on this channel, as many of you will know, about how do we reach this generation? Is it even possible to reach this generation, or is it completely lost? Have they just been so propagandized and brainwashed by new atheism and progressivism? Is it even possible to reach them anymore? How do we do this? I've been thinking about this a lot, as many of you will know. So to see thousands upon thousands of people turning back to Jesus has just been incredibly exciting. And I just hope that this is the start of a genuine turning point, pun intended, and that the quiet revival that's been rumored for so long starts to sound a little louder in the months and years ahead. Wouldn't it be amazing if that which was intended for evil actually is the moment that inspires a true flourishing of the gospel around the world, a new wave, a new revival? And his impact really has been global. In a sense, what he did was so simple. He just sat at a table on university campuses and talked to people, armed with nothing but a microphone and the truth. And yet, this past week, we've seen that simple act has been inspiring hundreds of millions in New Zealand, in Korea, here in the UK, across the United States and Canada. People held vigils. And during the United Kingdom March at the weekend, many people were chanting Charlie's name. It's been the same across the world. It's so inspiring. And it made me think, actually, what is it about Charlie Kirk that made him so inspirational? Why did he make such an impact? And the answer, I think, is courage.
Men don't follow titles. They follow courage.
That line is true. People follow courage. I don't know if anyone remembers how the world looked before 2016, 2015, that kind of period. Basically before Donald Trump's first term in office as the president of the United States. Because of a general slide towards progressivism and atheism that had begun in the post-war period, but again, particularly the 1960s, the Overton window of what was considered reasonable public opinion had begun to slide towards the extreme left. This meme, which has been going around, is absolutely true. The center and the right have stayed relatively consistent in their beliefs over the years, but the left has gradually become increasingly extreme and unhinged. And one of the best examples of this is how in the 1990s and 2000s, Democrats like the Clintons and Barack Obama talked openly about the need to secure American borders. You can find these videos online quite easily.
All Americans, not only in the states most heavily affected, but in every place in this country, are rightly disturbed by the large numbers of illegal aliens entering our country. That's why our administration has moved aggressively to secure our borders more, by hiring a record number of new border guards, by deporting twice as many criminal aliens as ever before.
It will authorize some badly needed funding for better fences and better security along our borders.
Secure our borders with technology, personnel, physical barriers if necessary in some places.
I voted for a fence. I voted unlike most Democrats, and some of you won't like it. I voted for 700-mile fence.
And of course they should say that because that's a very sensible opinion. You can't have unfettered illegal immigration. And so therefore, Democrats of the day agreed and cheered this. Securing the borders is a very reasonable opinion. Yet by 2015, the left had become so extreme in their views that they called anyone who held to these very sensible opinions racist, fascist, Nazis now. Likewise, if you go back 30 years, maybe even 20 years, everyone on both sides of the aisle agreed that homosexuality was undesirable, gay marriage should not be a thing, and transgenderism was in fact impossible. Fast forward to 2015, however, and the left had gone so extreme in their views that they were now promoting these things and saying that anyone who held to the sensible opinion was now a fascist and a bigot and a Nazi. The left was becoming increasingly unhinged and extreme. Now, the left controlled the social media platforms. They controlled the legacy media. They controlled the educational establishments. And so there was increasingly less space for people to air these common sense beliefs. If you said that you believed in border control and marriage being between one man and one woman, and scientifically it's impossible for men to become women and vice versa, very sensible, common sense opinions that everybody all throughout history held to until about 5 minutes ago, suddenly, because of this Overton window shift, you can now lose your job for saying those things. You could lose your income. You could lose your family, your friends, being deplatformed on social media, losing your bank account, even having the police turn up to arrest you and putting you in jail. And for most ordinary people then, these punishments were so severe that they preferred just to stay quiet and let the leftist extremism of the day dominate the public sphere. They were scared into silence. They knew that if they spoke up, they could lose everything. So they stayed quiet and let the loud left chant and shout and do their thing. There were many examples in those days of even celebrities saying very sensible things in the public sphere, like, I don't think that men can become women. Macy Gray is the one that comes to mind most readily for me. Immediately, the left would come at them. They came at Macy Gray and all those other celebrities with their pitchforks and their torches, and they demanded that celebrity be cancelled. Take it back, they would say. Fall in line with the far left propaganda. And then a few days later, almost invariably, The offending celebrity would then issue this groveling apology and say, please don't cancel me. Please still come to my shows. Please still listen to my music and watch my movies. Hollywood producers, please don't cancel me. I promise to bow before the progressive God and never speak out of turn again if you'll let me come back in. Now, if celebrities who are generally millionaires couldn't afford to be cancelled for saying these sensible things, how much more the ordinary person? And so a silent majority of sensible, ordinary people who were too scared to speak up became the norm. They were there, but they were silenced. They didn't have a voice. Now, Donald Trump was the first aspiring politician to come along who gave voice to these common people with common sense opinions and beliefs. Donald Trump came along and said the common sense thing. He said, we can't have an open border on the south. We need to put up a wall there to have some kind of control. Muslims seem to want to kill us. This was after another terrorist attack back in those days. So we need to pause flights from Islamic countries, he said, till we figure this thing out. Why do Muslims want to kill us? And when the left came at him, he was the first one to stand there and just take it and hold his ground and say, no, I said what I said. We need to look at these things. The Overton window, in fact, was so far left at that time that even Republicans attacked him because the Republicans had moved left in order to try to win votes. It was that far left that even Republicans were kind of on the left. He was the first one to stand and say these sensible things and not back down. That's why people rushed to follow Donald Trump, because he was the first politician to come along and say things that everyone believed but didn't feel they could say out loud anymore. And he didn't back down. People follow courage. Now, Charlie Kirk is inspirational for exactly the same reasons, but I would say even more inspirational because he didn't have Donald Trump's money. He came from nothing. He didn't have a college education. He was an everyman. He was one of us. He was one of the people. Yet day after day, he would go into these dens of hostility, these far left dens of hostility, and courageously speak the truth there and speak Jesus there and challenge the extreme left worldview, campus by campus, person by person. He slowly changed hearts and changed minds. That's why they despised him, because he walked into their dens and he shattered their propaganda. He encouraged people to think for themselves. And his legacy looks like it's going to be millions and millions of people, especially young people, leaving that far left cult and being rescued from atheism and progressivism and moving towards Christianity. That could be his legacy. People follow courage. That's what we've got to learn from Charlie Kirk. I think this is the big lesson. For this generation and for all the generations to come, we should never forget this. Never fall in line with the world and follow the ideas of the age. They will change from generation to generation, but they will always be wrong. Never fall in line with the ideas of the age, but instead courageously stand for the eternal truth of the Bible in your time and in your generation. If you're a pastor or a church leader who's been watering down the truth in the past years to appease the crowd and protect the collection takings or to spare your own life even, then it's been a dereliction of duty, because Jesus calls you to stand courageously. That's what it means to be a church leader, to stand courageously for the truth. And if you do, people will get behind it. People will follow courage. Why is it that mainline churches have lost so many people in recent decades? Because they were the ones who followed the herd and fell in line with the progressivism of the day. They abandoned the truth for ease and safety and comfort and to avoid confrontation. What churches are thriving, on the other hand, they're the ones who held to the truth at all costs, even in spite of the cultural temperature. The ones where God's word would be spoken unapologetically at all costs and at all times. These are the ones who are thriving. Now you may say, but what if I preach unapologetically and people get offended and leave the church? They will. Many times Jesus preached and the Bible says the crowds were divided in their opinion about him. The truth always divides. Some wanted to kill Jesus, but many believed and were saved. That's how it's always going to look when you preach the truth. And anything less than the truth is a dereliction of duty. Paul caused revivals and riots everywhere he went. Preach the bold truth, and it will always cause this division. It will offend the goats, but at the same time, it will inspire God's true flock and it will save many. And that's our calling. And it doesn't just go for official church leaders either. That goes for all of us. We are a priesthood of all believers in the church. The Great Commission has been given to everyone in the church. And I've been so inspired by the number of ordinary citizens making videos recently saying, I used to stay quiet. I was afraid of speaking up in my workplace or online because that may leave a digital footprint that could damage my future prospects. But no longer. From now on, I will stand for the truth. From now on, I will speak up, whatever the consequences. And this should be Charlie's legacy and his inspiration for the church going forward. This is what Jesus has called us to do, to speak the truth boldly in love to our generation and to fight this good fight. Be courageous.